Off and running, another edition of Musso at the Box. Welcome in, presented by Gotlit Light Installers. Go ahead and smash the like button, get subscribed if you have not already, on your favorite podcast app, as well as the YouTube channel. LSU, they take 2 out of 3 from South Carolina, dropping the first game in walk-off fashion, 6-5. Winning behind Anthony Ianson and Cade Anderson the next 2 days, 8-1 behind Anderson on Friday, 7-3 behind Anthony Ianson on Saturday to take the series, get to 19-11 in the SEC, finish the regular season at 42-13, lock up a double bye in the SEC tournament, a top 4 finish in the league, and for all intents and purposes, lock up a top 8 national seed where they should now play the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament at home, provided they get through the regional, and then, you advance to the Supers, and hopefully from there on to Omaha. I have thoughts about the postseason outlook that we'll get to towards the end of the show, and some thoughts on the SEC tournament, what seeds you have, where and when you will play. All of those things are finalized, and we'll get to that. But we'll obviously start with a brief overall thought on the series, Game 3, and then further overall thoughts on the series, and then we'll get into the postseason outlook. So my first overall thought is they deserve a lot of credit for that. LSU did not play their best ball at multiple points this weekend. But what that was a hard-fought, gritty, tough series win from a ball club that has a lot of veterans and a good mix of youth on it. They were not good in game 1. They just weren't. Call it what it is. That doesn't mean the season was over. That doesn't mean they weren't going to achieve their goals. They played a really horrible game with a lot on the line, and in doing so, you put yourself behind the 8 ball. But in setting up the pitching the way that you did, while you had to burn through some of your top arms in that game, and you lose it in game 1, which I didn't love, you had Ianson, you had Anderson, Anderson, Ianson going for you in games 2 and 3. You had your horses ready to go in line, and they've been awesome. They've been awesome all year, but especially the last month of the season. And they were, again, in crunch time with a lot of pressure on them. Knowing you burned through those arms that you did on Thursday. Knowing that they had to give you length. On Thursday night, after all the yelling and screaming were done, and we talked about the next 2 games in the series, I told you I wanted 7 out of both of them. Well, you got 6 2/3 out of Anderson, and you got 7 out of Ianson. They gave you the length that you needed, and your offense, while again not perfect, responded the next 2 days as well. And it's a hell of a thing, that 6-run marker for LSU. They have still lost 1 game all year when scoring 6 or more runs. And you look at this weekend. In the wins, 8 runs, 7 runs. In the loss, 5 runs. Like, that is remarkable how consistent that angle has played out for this baseball team. And, a couple things that we thought going into this weekend proved true. Thought, look, you have a great chance to have a power breakout playing in that ballpark, and you did. LSU had 7 home runs, 3 of them from Jared Jones. He had a great weekend. We'll get into him more. But the fight that this team showed after laying an egg, call it what it is, laying an egg in game number 1 with so much on the line, they come back in game 2 and 3 behind their horses with even more on the line, and they get the job done. So that's very commendable. And, I wanted to really start the show with that before getting into game 3. So you go into the rubber match, and Ianson's on the bump for you. And, you look at his line in all in that ball game, and you see 7 innings, 2 earned, 3 walks, 5 punch-outs. I didn't think he was his sharpest. It was interesting because when you look by his pitch count breakdown per inning, he actually was pretty efficient, except for that second inning through 33 pitches. But it just felt like he was never really consistently ahead in the count, and only 5 punch-outs for him does speak to, okay, he wasn't as sharp with the put-away stuff, but he was, for strikeouts, but he was still getting weak contact throughout. And that was massive. What Anthony Ianson did in Game 3 is kind of what he's done all year. He got stronger as the game went along, and he was excellent. Excellent with runners on base. You want examples of that? The second inning, is the first instance of that in game number 3 for Anthony Ianson. You give up the leadoff single to Iota, you get the ground out, but then a walk puts 2 guys on, a strikeout, and then Scobie, who had a great weekend, honestly, some really clutch hits, doubles. You have second and third, you're down 1-0, 2 outs, and you have the 9-hole hitter at the plate. And you fall behind 3-0 to the 9-hole. And you're looking at Nathan Hall potentially coming up, second and third, potentially the bases loaded, and a run already in, and Ianson battles back and gets the strikeout. Couple generous calls in there from Scott Klein behind the plate, but he gets out of that and strands those 2 runners and keeps it small. LSU would eventually break through in the 4th, Jared Jones with the solo homer. Ianson gives it right back. Bo Hollins homers in the bottom half of that inning, but again, he gives up a single right after that, and the runner doesn't advance past first base. And you keep it again at a 1-run ball game. And that was massive because in the 5th inning, that was LSU's big inning in the ball game. Aaron Beatty singles, Stanfield walks, Curiel singles. You have the bases loaded, nobody out. Jones hits into the double play, which stunk. But he didn't punch out. And that's what's huge. He put the ball in play, and you end up scoring a run, and then Dickinson picks him up and hits the 2-run homer to give you the 3 spot. And at that point, you got the cushion that you just kept adding on. But I bring that inning up to go back to Ianson, because Ianson in the bottom of the 5th, that was the best inning he had all day. LSU just put up the 3 spot. You take a 4-2 lead. We talk so often about needing a shutdown 0 at that point. You look at Ianson, the pitch count was elevated. He was already in the 70s going into the bottom of the 5th, and he throws a 10-pitch 5th inning, 3 up, 3 down to get you back into the dugout. LSU mounted a threat. They would not, it wouldn't come to fruition in the 6th, unfortunately, but Ianson would work out of yet another jam, allows 2 base runners, gets out of it again in the 6th inning, and then the 7th, I mean, he was just nails again, 3 up, 3 down to end his outing. But that's just what you've seen so much. He never really had the consistency of all of his pitches at one time in this ball game. And that's why, again, why I say not as sharp. But he had fastball command and command of that curveball at the same time. He had fastball command and command of that slider at the same time. And that was enough for him to be able to work around. That's the beauty of Anthony Ianson is and Cade Anderson for that matter, but how well he can mix. The stuff is plenty good enough, and the fastball's up to 95, but it's how well he can mix that keeps hitters off balance, where, man, you know, if I don't have my slider this inning, let's try the breaking ball, the curve, and just see. And he normally flips it over more often than not. So, look, he battled hard. That's what he's done all year. Again, was great with runners on base. In fact, LSU's pitching as a whole was fantastic with runners on base this weekend. South Carolina, over 3 games, was 6 for 31. That's a 193 average with runners on base. That's how you hold them to the scores that you did. LSU's offense in game number 3. I mean, Jared Jones was phenomenal all weekend long. Jones on the weekend hit 461. 3 of his 6 hits left the yard for home runs. He drove in 5. He walked twice, and he only punched out twice over the course of the entire weekend. That's huge. That's the weekend we've been waiting to see from Jared Jones again. And yeah, I get it. It's against South Carolina, and they're not very good. That's fine. But hopefully that builds some confidence for Jared Jones going forward. And he came up with big swings. Like, that's what was awesome. He had the opportunity to hurt South Carolina, and he did it. Go back to the 2-run homer in the 8th inning on Friday that gave you cushion that you so desperately needed in that ball game. Obviously, he ties the game up in the 4th. Then in the 5th, gets you the lead with the RBI on the double play. It's not what you wanted, but that's big. He gave you the lead, started the scoring on Friday. So he was awesome all weekend long, and I'm hoping he builds on that going into the SEC tournament and obviously into the NCAA tournament. That's Man, that's the weekend you were looking at for Jared Jones. And congratulations to him. He passed Dylan Cruz. He passed Trey McClure. He now sits third place all-time by himself. 61 career home runs. That's where he will stay, is in third place. He's not coming back, obviously, for his senior season, so he won't catch Brad Cressy, and he obviously will not catch Eddie Furnace, who's at 80. I don't, just given the nature of the players who are going to even be in the running for that, how they're going to leave after 3 years, I don't really know if anyone's ever going to catch Eddie Furnace or Brad Cressy for that matter. So, but congratulations to Jared Jones, third place all time, and that's where he should finish. It's where he will finish, no lower than that in LSU history. It's been a really good 3 years, and it was awesome to see him kind of punctuate year number 3 regular season in that fashion. I thought he was great. The other thing, Danny Dickinson was awesome. And you know what? Forgive me. I meant to go look up his stats over the course of the last 2 weekends and combine them. I did not do that. We will do that on the show this week. But he was great this weekend. 416, 2 homers. That got him into double digits, 4 RBI. Again, you hit 7 homers. You took advantage of that ballpark. Although maybe 3 out of the 7, I would say, wouldn't have been out of the box. I mean, that's maybe. Every single one of Jared Jones's would have been gone. I mean, he had a 430-foot home run on Saturday. The one Jake Brown hit Saturday would have been way gone at the box as well. So, you know, I thought Dickinson was awesome, and he was great against Arkansas as well. You know what? Dickinson, I don't have his numbers from last weekend written down. Damn, that's my bad. We'll do that on an episode later this week. But 416, 2 homers. He drove in 4 runs. The combination of him and Jones right there in that 2 and 3 hole was awesome. I mean, and because Dickinson was so hot, you had to pitch to Jones. And because Fry and or Brown, those are the 2 guys that hit behind Dickinson, were so hot, you had to pitch to him. And they really hurt you all weekend. LSU scored 20 runs over the course of 3 games. And Jared Jones and Danny Dickinson drove in 9 of them. They drove in damn near half of the runs. You know, and whichever ones they didn't, Ethan Fry drove in. So, I mean, awesome to see from those 2 guys heating back up, hopefully, going into the SEC and NCAA tournament. I thought LSU showed tremendous fight offensively in game number 3. Dylan Eskew, he got you through 4 innings really, only allowing you 1 run, and you weren't able to take advantage of mistakes. And LSU didn't really take advantage of gifts and mistakes very well in game 3. I mean, you look at the second and the third inning, you were issued 3 free passes over the course of those 2 innings. You did not score a run. You look at that 6th inning, which I am so glad we do not have to sit here on this show right now and talk about how that 6th inning cost you. Because, my goodness, 2nd and 3rd and nobody out, and you got nothing, and there was an error included in that. And Braswell with great base running to take a base to keep you out of a potential double play, and you still get nothing. Like, that's what I mean. You did not take advantage of gifts well at all in game number 3. But what you did is you came up with clutch hits. You came up with clutch hits. You hit over 300 with runners in scoring position in game 3, and that erased that. I mean, you know, take the 5th inning. Bases loaded, nobody out. Jones hits in the double play. But as we said, Dickinson comes right behind him and picks him up, hits the 2-run homer. Man, you don't get anything out of that 6th inning, and that stunk. But it didn't phase them at the plate. You score single runs in the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. So tremendous resolve and tremendous fight from LSU offensively in that ball game. You know, that was a hard-fought game. Like, it was a hard-fought win for LSU in game number 3. And credit South Carolina. They played really hard. They showed and proved to themselves they could play with you and beat you in game 1. And even after getting skunked a little bit in game 2, they came back out, took an early lead. Like, they fought hard, and LSU was just better. And that was great. So, again, it wasn't your best overall, on the weekend at times. But when you look back at it, it's a really solid offensive weekend. 20 runs on 33 hits, and you launched 7 homers. You'll take that, especially on the road. And I understand the competition. But gritty, because there was a lot of pressure on LSU to get that done. And they did. So hat tip to those guys. We'll get into some overall thoughts here momentarily. Let me remind you about Got Lit Light Installers, gotlitlights.com. That's where you go for your quote. It is custom design, exterior lighting for your home, your office, your business. Looking at your house, front yard flower beds, permanent outdoor landscape lighting, backyard patio and pool area, permanent outdoor landscape lighting. All to your custom design specifications. Got Lit, they don't just leave after they install the lights. They will come maintain the lights for you as well. They can store the lights if you're looking at the temporary lighting options for your private events. They have that covered. Any private event, by the way, wedding reception, rehearsal, like wherever you're going, anniversary, graduation, birthday, Got Lit Light Installers, they have you covered. Outdoor lighting extraordinaire over there, Derek and his team. And don't forget about the Christmas lights in the winter season. All custom design, all cut to fit for your home, install, maintenance, tear down, and storage. It is Got Lit Light Installers. GotLitLights.com for your quote, and tell them you heard it right here on Musso at the Box. All right. Overall thoughts from the weekend. We will start on the mound. Anderson and Ianson shoved once again. You remember throughout the week, we talked about their last three outings because you were against Tennessee, you were against A&M, you were against Arkansas, three really talented offenses, and they were dominant. They had pitched to a 2.06 ERA. LSU had a 4-2 record in their starts over the course of that. You look at Anderson and Ianson this weekend, again, in big spots, like a lot of pressure on them, knowing LSU has to win that series. They give you 13 2/3, 3 earned, 6 walks, 14 strikeouts. You add that into their numbers coming into this, and you look at the last month, and Anderson and Ianson lowered their ERA. They have now pitched to a 2.03 ERA in their last 4 starts combined. LSU has a 6-2 record in those games. They have walked 19 and punched out 80 in more than 53 innings pitched. They are, without question, the best 1-2 punch in America. Show me a better one. And I have all the respect in the world for Liam Doyle and Marcus Phillips over at Tennessee. I am not trading Anderson and Ianson for those two guys. In no world. No reality does that exist where I give up Anderson and Ianson for any other 1-2 punch in the country. I think they're the best. Chase Shores continues to dominate out of the bullpen. Shores, a week ago against Arkansas, threw 4 2/3, gave up 2 earned, punched out 4. Chase Shores in 2 2/3 over 2 outings, shutout baseball, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. He has settled into a great role. And this is a conversation I want to dive into a little bit deeper as we get throughout the week leading into the SEC tournament. But Shores' role is in the bullpen now. I am not comfortable moving him because he's been so good down the stretch for you there. And you've seen Zach Cowan, tail off a little bit. And you've seen Casey Evans be able to spot start for you and still be nails out of the bullpen when you need him. Chase Shores' development there and emergence is awesome. And I'm just that is something you needed in the bullpen because it gives you flexibility with other guys. If Chase Shores develops another guy that can come in and close it out now, okay, well, you can use Cowan potentially as a bridge. There's a lot of layers to that conversation that I want to get into, as I said, as we go throughout the week. But Chase Shores just continues to show himself and prove. And he is really coming into his own right now, and I could not be more fired up for that, for Chase Shores and for LSU. That's a massive development for this team heading into the postseason. Cooper Williams is another guy that I want to talk about as well because I love what I've seen from the last month. Absolutely love it. And you know what? He gave up the homer to Kazmar, and Kazmar actually killed you this weekend, but it didn't really matter. I do want to kind of get into that a little bit. He hit 400, had 2 triples, a homer, scored 3 times. He had a great weekend. It just didn't matter because you dominated the rest of South Carolina's lineup so much. But he gives up the home run to Kazmar there in the 8th inning. But it was the response that I loved so much. Wiota, who has been pretty good for them in conference play. He was their leading hitter in SEC play coming into the series. He's up after that. You got the lefty-lefty matchup, and you immediately get ahead 0-2, and you end up getting a ground out in a 1-2 count. That's a great response. You know what wouldn't have been good? If he comes in there and the control and command problems he's had throughout the year reappear, and they didn't. He gets ahead in the count, gets the ground out. You send him back out there for the top of the ninth so you can move Bo Hollins to the right side, which LSU clearly favored him at the right side, and Williams gets the punch out. Over the last month, Cooper Williams has now appeared. So this will start with the Tennessee series, your last 4 series, your last month. He has appeared now in 5 games. He has thrown 2 1/3 innings in those 5 games, so a lot of matchup work in there. But just 1 earned run, just 1 walk, and in 2 1/3, 5 punch-outs. Yo, he's emerging. He's developing as the season goes on. He's growing up as a freshman, kind of in front of your eyes. And look, I'm not telling you that Cooper Williams is going to haul off and be LSU's best bullpen arm in the postseason. So please don't misunderstand me. That's not what I'm saying. Cooper Williams probably isn't ever going to be much more than a matchup guy for you this year. But that's a very important role, and in my opinion, you've found that guy. You've been searching for it all year from a left-handed perspective, whether it was Primo, whether it was Ware. It is Cooper Williams. And I think the last month really proves that. Again, 5 appearances, 2 1/3, 1 earned run over 5 appearances, just 1 walk, and 5 punch-outs. That's loud. That's loud considering those 4 series are Tennessee, A&M, Arkansas, and now South Carolina. Absolutely love what I've seen from Cooper Williams the last month of the season. I think he's a big piece for LSU's bullpen going forward in the postseason, specifically in that matchup capacity. And that is huge. That's someone you have to have. So I love that going forward for Williams. I think LSU's bullpen's in a pretty good spot. I liked seeing Maverick Rizzi come out, and get the one out that he was asked to get. It was Nathan Hall. That's a tough hitter. That's South Carolina's best hitter right now. That's a tough out, and he was able to get it. And LSU did a phenomenal job against Hall. While Kazmar beat you pretty good, Hall was 2 out of 13. You handcuffed him all weekend, and that was great. Offensive takeaways. We talked about, the Jared Jones and Dickinson. I loved Milam and Curiel in Game 3. I liked Curiel a lot in Game 2, even though he went 0 for 5. He punched out one time and hit the ball hard. And the first pitch he saw, knocks a single. Ends up with 3 hits on the day, does Derek Curiel, at the top of your lineup, and drives in a run as well. He really needed that performance. And what was encouraging seeing him in Game 2 was a lot of his at-bats were against lefties, and he wasn't punching out. He was making some adjustments and at least putting the ball in play. You carry over, see him face a bunch of righties in this game, and he was awesome. 3 out of 5, so that was big. Milam going 2 out of 4, getting the average back up over 280 for the regular season, driving in a run. That was big. The at-bat, he had 3 really good ABs in a row where he had the single, then he had the hard fly out. He smoked the ball to center. And then in the 9th, after Brown, I forgot to talk about Jake Brown. Hold on. In the 9th, after Brown doubles, Milam battles at the plate, great at bat, and singles to drive him in. So he had 3 really, really good at bats to end that ball game, and hopefully that's finally what kickstarts him, because you need Steven Milam going forward in the postseason. You really, really do. That's a kid that hit 326 a year ago, was awesome for you in the postseason. Obviously, the SEC tournament walk-off homer, the walk-off homer against Wofford, we know what it was. We don't have to rehash all of that. He's just been in a bit of a sophomore slump this year, but I'm hoping that's what kind of breaks him out. And same thing for Curiel. Curiel finally hit a slump towards the end of this season, really starting with that A&M weekend, but hopefully the 3-hit day here on Saturday in Game 3 kind of breaks him out. Jake Brown. What fight at the plate by Jake Brown on Saturday. Jake Brown started 0 for 2 with 2 punch-outs, and finished a triple shy of the cycle. That's massive. Like, I know we've harped and stumped for Jake Brown a lot on this show. Like, I understand that. Really, all the way back to the preseason, we were doing that when I wanted him to get the first crack at protecting Jared Jones. But I don't really care who it is. I'm going to acknowledge anyone who does that, where you start 0 for 2 with 2 punch-outs and then finish a triple shy of the cycle. Brown, who got 1 start this week, but pinch hit in the other 2 games and got hits both times, ends up finishing 5 out of 8 with a homer, 2 doubles, and an RBI. He's hitting 620. He hit 625 over the course of the weekend. Like, that is freaking absurd. But this is the other thing I really want to point out with Brown. The power's finally starting to come for Jake Brown. And that's a scary proposition for that player. LSU needs extra power in this lineup. And when you look at Brown, I thought for this season that LSU would likely end up with a lot of guys in that, 10 to 12 to 13 home run range. That Jared Jones was the only guy on your team that could consistently drive the ball out of the park. And so far, that's played out. The thing was, though, I thought Jake Brown would be one of those guys. I really did. And looking up at the season right now and seeing him just at 7 home runs is surprising, but look at him the last few weeks. Like, of those 7 homers, 3 of them have come in the last 2 series. 4 of them have come in the last month. It's the power stroke starting to come. That's a guy last year who I believe, let me double check and make sure I have this correct. I believe Jake Brown hit 4 homers a year ago. Jake Brown hit 4 home runs a year ago. I look at these stats too much, guys. 4 home runs a year ago for Brown. He's at 7 now. I expected a jump quicker, but you're starting to really see the power come, and I think that's huge for LSU going into the postseason because you need more consistent power threats throughout this lineup. I think Ethan Fry's been very good at that. 10 of his 11 have come at the box where you're going to play postseason ball, so that's great. Obviously, Jared Jones. Milam's hit you 10. Dickinson's now into double digits. You can get Brown into double digits before this thing's all said and done. That's going to be massive. So all in all, great series win for LSU. They did what they went in there to do. Let's talk postseason. For me, LSU is a lock for a top 8 national seed. You can look at some other teams around the country, but LSU, it gets this simple for me. LSU is 19-11 and a top 4 team in the SEC. In no world should the committee leave out a top 4 team in the SEC. Those teams should get top 8s, and LSU finished there. That's number 1. Number 2, if you actually want to dive into metrics here, we can have that conversation. I know some people might be scared of Oregon State with a better RPI than LSU, and their record overall is comparable. Oregon State has 5 quad 1 wins. That is a non-starter for me. Their strength of schedule is also worse than LSU. Oregon State, in no world, I'm not telling you Oregon State can't be a top 8, but in no world should Oregon State get one over LSU. That should just not happen, ever. Okay, Musso, what about Oregon? They've been really hot this second half. You know what? They have. The Oregon Ducks have been awesome. They went 22-8 in the Big Ten. They won it. That's good. That's really, really good. They don't have a top 10 RPI. Their strength of schedule is worse than LSU. They have 9 quad 1 wins. LSU has 13. Sorry, Oregon can be a top 8. They cannot be one over LSU. That's, again, non-starter. What about the ACC teams? Well, Florida State took it on the chin. Their RPIs dropped out of the top 10. They finished with 17 ACC wins. I don't know if that's enough to get it done for them, especially when you look at North Carolina and Clemson, both with better RPIs, both with more ACC conference wins. Musso, what about Georgia Tech? They won the ACC. They did. Congratulations. Their RPI is 20th. They don't deserve a top 8 with an RPI like that. They just don't. Will they host? I think so. Maybe they sneak in because they won the league. But if you give that team that has an RPI of 20 a top 8, fine, but you can't do it at the expense of LSU. You just can't. Georgia. You know what? Georgia's the #1 ranked RPI team in the country. They have 18 league wins. LSU's got more quad 1 wins than them. You want to give Georgia a top 8? Fine, but you can't do it at the expense of LSU. And then there's Auburn. Auburn got their ass kicked this weekend by Ole Miss. They finished with 17 conference wins. Do they have great metrics? Absolutely. The #1 strength of schedule, the #2 RPI, 15 quad 1 wins. Like, all of those metrics are better than LSU. They swept LSU. And I'm here to tell you, I don't give a damn. That team finished with 17 conference wins. They didn't finish in the top 4 of the league. You want to give them one? Fine. But you cannot give them one at the expense of LSU. LSU is a lock, in my opinion, to be a top 8 national seed, regardless of what happens in Hoover, regardless of what happens around the country in other tournaments. And I will go back to where I started there. You finished top 4 in the toughest league. The toughest league in the country. And oh, by the way, the team that finished second, right above you, you beat in a series 2 out of 3. So it's not like you can look at, well, they got to play Missouri and South Carolina. Yeah, they did. They also had to play Tennessee. They also had to play Arkansas. They also had to play Texas. They had to play Bama. Bama's a top 10 RPI team. You beat the majority of those teams in series. LSU passes the eye test. And when you compare their resume to other teams that could be fighting for this, LSU is ahead of them right now. And you cannot give those teams a seed at the expense of LSU. You want to give them one? Fine. But it needs to be at the expense of somebody else because LSU has hit the benchmarks that they need to hit. For me, they are a lock. 100%. Now, as far as the SEC tournament goes and your bracket, I was hoping they'd have this thing filled out by now. They don't. But looking at the conference standings, LSU finished 3rd. Technically tied for 3rd with Vanderbilt, but you have them in overall wins. You have them in win percentage. You have them really everywhere. You didn't play head-to-head, so those tiebreaks are going to go from there. So LSU should be the 3 seed. If LSU is the 3 seed, and again, let me go to the SEC Network Twitter and see if they've announced, if they've posted the bracket, because all action in the league is final. Like, the bracket should be complete at this point. They have not. What about this guy? He's really good at. Okay. LSU's the 3 seed in this tournament. LSU, and if I'm wrong on that, we'll correct it later in the week. But I'm pretty confident saying that LSU has locked up the 3 seed, which means they will play the final game on Friday. They changed the format here, right? So the double bye teams are now split. Seeds 1 and 4 play Thursday. Seeds 2 and 3 play Friday. LSU would play the last game of the day Friday, 6:30 Central first pitch. We'll wait to see who they end up playing, but I love that because for me, what the SEC tournament is about is keeping your pitchers on normal rest. I'd love for you to be able to get Ianson and Anderson a start. They'd be on normal rest. You don't have to let them go long if you don't want to, but just to get them out there, I think is big. And in doing that, I think LSU has a really solid shot to win a game or 2 potentially in the SEC tournament. Do I think they need to? No. Do I want LSU to? Not really, quite frankly. Win 1 and then go home on Saturday. But what I really want you to do is just get Anderson and Ianson on the bump for something to keep them in routine. Jay runs a very routine-oriented program. Very much so. So I think that's big. But that's a great regular season for LSU. 42-13. If memory serves me correct, the 2023 team also finished 42-13. They were 19-10 in the league. You're 19-11. You finished top 4. You got your double bye. And as far as I'm concerned, you've got your top 8 seed. If we come back here on Selection Monday and have a talk about LSU not being a top 8 seed, you will see a very, very angry me, because that means the committee royally screwed this up. So I think LSU's safe. I think they're good. You're going to get 2 weeks of postseason ball at the box, God willing. And if you do that, chances are you're off to Omaha. LSU's been almost unbeatable in that building so far in 2025. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Y'all smash the like button. Please get subscribed. Follow on social media. Subscribe, YouTube and your favorite podcast app. And be here next time for more on Musso at the Box.